rally, the peace rally on Palm Sunday. We gather again, all those of us who care about peace in our world. And this year, as for the past several years, it's been organised by the Refugee Action Collective and Just Peace on this Palm Sunday. I'd like, first of all, to ask Sam Watson, who's a well-known Indigenous elder, born and brought up in Brisbane. He's of the Mununjal and Birigabal tribal nations, and he has blood ties to the Jagera, Kalkadoon and Ngunnawal peoples. He's here to welcome us to country. Thank you, Sam.
Thanks very much. Good to see so many people out and about, and good to see friends and comrades from previous years. Thanks to the organisers for again recognising and acknowledging our sacred culture protocols. Acknowledge our senior elders who are with us. Uncle Bob and Auntie Kathy there. You should be up here. So, on behalf of our elders and senior people, we welcome you on to country. These are sacred lands of 4 principal tribal nations who make up the Jagera language group. My mob are the south side of the river, the Jagera, Yagara and Yagarapul people. On this side of the river, we're gathered on lands of the Turrbal people. This country extends from QT down to where the Royal Brisbane Hospital and the exhibition grounds are, out to the Boonall wetlands. On the south side of the river, our country extends down to the bay, which is known in our language as Pondamuka, Logan River, out to the Toowoomba Ranges. We have a very large community of Indigenous people within the Brisbane boundaries. So, thanks, Mark. So, on behalf of our elders and senior people, welcome into this place at this very special time of the year. We have a large community of Indigenous people within the Greater Brisbane area, over 45,000 people who have come into Brisbane for a large number of reasons. We also have a large community of Torres Strait Islander people who are living on this country. So on behalf of our elders, we'd welcome you here. This is special country to us all, and we're going to be talking about very important issues. Issues that are important to our community, issues that are important to our people right across the Greater Brisbane and Queensland areas. So thank you for being here. Thanks again to the organisers, and let's give our commitment and our support to those people who really need us. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. I'm Danielle Villunis, and I've been invited to MC this hour because I represent MAPW, Medical Association for the Prevention of War. We're a group of doctors, both across Australia and internationally, who take the view that war is not good for your health. Planning to make it, developing the instruments to wage it, making money from it, actually doing it and supporting the doing of war, the destruction of people and infrastructure and the earth itself. These lead to huge costs in terms of mental health, physical health, and they are a public health issue which we feel and know and are gathering research on affects all Australians, all citizens. We come here today to focus on our refugees. I've told you who I am. I invite you to consider who you are, and let's think about who they are. How did they get to be refugees? How did they get to want to come to our country? And how are we treating them? How are we speaking about them? How are we listening to them being spoken of in our name? And the interesting thing is, what is this doing to our children? Humans tend to move into what about me? So before we think about them, let's go to number one. Let's go to ourselves. What do our children make of what we're doing to refugee children and their families? Well, we have a young being, Leela, who is 8 years old, and unlike the refugee children, she's safe in her family in Brisbane, and we now know her name. She doesn't go by a number as the refugee children go in the detention centres. Leela, of her own accord, emerging out of this family with an education to which we all take for granted she's entitled, not so the refugee children. She noticed the connection between what she was seeing and what the words of the national anthem are. We have boundless plains to share. And this young being, designated child, asked herself, how come we're not sharing those plains? How come we're not even talking about it in a sharing way, perhaps? And she took action. I'm told that she said that she couldn't go to sleep until she'd finished a letter. She wanted to write to the source of power, our Prime Minister. Dear Tony Abbott, her letter began. Here's Leela. Please welcome her to share with us the letter that she wrote and then shared, a letter to Tony Abbott, our Prime Minister. Welcome, Leela.
Dear Tony Abbott, I was reading the national anthem, Advanced Australia Fair. It says, for those who've come across the seas with boundless plains to share. I have heard that you've sent boats away from Australia and people have drowned and died. Some of them were children like me. I think that you should stop sending boats away from Australia and let them come. I feel sad about this. In my school, there are 48 different nationalities. Yours sincerely, Leela.
And that, my friends, is the child. Innocent, unsophisticated, simple and clear, but not simplistic, spotting the contradictions and asking a simple and natural emerging question. The child has two parts in our culture, I would argue. Back to the Prince of Peace. Remember, unless you become as a child, you shall not enter the kingdom of heaven. Sounds quaint in our day. What was the kingdom of heaven? It was a place in oneself where it was possible to access love and light. Unless we access that simple, clear innocence, we're not going to get there. We also have another image of the child who spotted the problem with the politics, the child who said the emperor has no clothes. And I would argue that we are all the emperor, and our clothes are our collective thoughts in which we justify, argue, refrain from thinking, claim its reason when it's unexamined, and we clothe ourselves in what protects us but actually doesn't. And it takes a child and a brave politician to say it's not working. However, as it turns out, it was from a church that this isn't working emerged. And so it's with great pleasure that I invite the Dean of the Archdiocese of Brisbane, Dr. Peter Catt, who stood strong and became a troublesome priest. Let's hope he doesn't meet the same end. He became a priest who said, the church at least should offer sanctuary. Let them come, we will do what we can. I have great pleasure in welcoming Dr. Kat.
Thank you, and thank you so much. About 6 weeks ago, we declared that St John's would be a place of sanctuary. And that, I can tell you, would have been, thank you, there is a whole bunch of other people who need some applause. That movement would have been very short-lived, except for the fact that declaring sanctuary, that very old, deep tradition that speaks to something very deep within us, unleashed a wave of public support. So the people who really need to be applauded are the thousands of people across this nation who said, sanctuary makes sense to me too, and I want to be part of that movement. So please applaud all of those people. The idea of sanctuary is a very simple one, and it says that people deserve to feel safe. And so we said, here are some people who are in Australia and safe now. Why would we send them to harm? We are prepared to keep them safe. We will offer sanctuary. And that was followed by comedians and authors and teachers, and wonderfully by state premiers and the Chief Minister of the ACT and the medical staff at Lady Cilento Hospital, all of whom said, we can do this. We can do this. We can keep these people safe. Sanctuary appeals to something deep within us. Today we need to rekindle or refocus ourselves on another one of those really ancient ideas. And that is the idea known as shalom. Shalom sometimes gets translated as peace. And it is peace, but it's the best, deepest peace you can imagine. It's the peace that arises when everyone has somewhere safe to be, when everyone has enough to eat, when everyone feels secure. It's the peace that comes through justice. And on this day, Palm Sunday, Peace Rally, Refugee Day, all point us to the need for shalom to be something that we embrace as fully as we embrace the idea of sanctuary. The refugees who walk the face of this earth are fleeing because shalom does not exist. And they are fleeing to places that are now learning that they cannot live in peace, that false peace, which is simply...
Last year, they did 104, and according to the... we haven't done another one since. Not one. So the RAF are sitting in their bases on an island in the Gulf, doing, I don't know what. They must be bored out of their brains. And this is a manifest misuse of our democracy. The very fact that these details are not known to many people and shock people is because our government keeps these matters secret from us. They wouldn't hold an inquiry into the Iraq War. Mind you, the British have held one that hasn't reported yet. The Americans have held one, and there's a whole big section of it about Saudi Arabia that hasn't been released either. In other words, they've got guilty consciences, they're hiding what they know, they're hiding it from us, and yet they had the gall to talk about freedom and democracy. We're supposed to be defending freedom of speech, for God's sake, and all kinds of other freedoms, yet we don't practice it. And we don't practice the very international laws for which we recommend respect to other countries like China, Vietnam, and a few others. We are in breach of the very international laws which we helped to establish in the first place. And the sooner this rubbish is put to an end, the better. The problem being, of course, that both sides of the federal parliament, the two major parties, are in league on this stuff because they will not give up the war power. Now, the war power is what allows the Prime Minister, on his own, on a captain's pick, to send the troops to war, as I said. And it is such an unfettered power. They love it. They can't wait to use it because they don't have to go to the Senate, they don't have to worry about the minor parties, they don't have to spend ages debating, they don't have to do anything, just do it. And when they actually, at one time, Abbott suggested going into Libya last year, it was the generals in the army that said, look, hey, give us a break, we're fully extended here. And it was the generals who had to say, the chief of the defence force, who had to say to Abbott, hey, cool it. Now, this is not good enough. To leave it to the generals to say when we won't go to war is not the way a democracy operates. So that's why we want reform of war powers. What we want, and we're starting to make little inroads, not through the major parties, but through the minor ones. What we want is to take away the power of the Prime Minister alone to do this, put it where it should be, with the Parliament, and the Parliament, through a process of recommendations and debate and discussion, through the Governor-General as the Commander-in-Chief, or a future President if we have one, can decide very carefully and after a lot of scrutiny, public scrutiny, whether or not to send troops to war. And my guess is that the reasons for not doing so will outweigh the reasons for doing it every time. Just as the UK Parliament did in 2013 when Cameron wanted to send them into Syria and the Commons said no. They said no, and he couldn't. And Obama quickly followed suit and didn't send troops either. Of course, they got smart later and overturned that and managed to get the UN to do a resolution, etc. But as long as people know this and know how we're being lied to and know what the necessary steps are to change this situation, then we're making some progress and we're making proper use of our democracy. Over there are heaps of booklets about what we do in war powers reform and about what the detailed issues are, which I've only just sketched today. And I just wish that all of us can bring our concerted efforts to bear to tell government again, as we've told them before, that we won't put up with it. Thank you.
So we need everybody, as well as knowing who we are, being safe to express how we feel, as well as having a passion and a purpose and working together, as well as joining hearts. We need educated and informed minds. But what exactly are we going to do? Well, there's so much to do. Choose what floats your boat. Choose the people you want to be doing it with. The doctors who've worked at the Lady Salento Children's Hospital would be very happy if you were to help them ask, is baby Asha all right? How is she doing now? Can it really be true that after all of that, that she's under house arrest in a motel room somewhere in the suburbs that nobody's talking about? There's an action. Talk about it at dinner. Ask the politicians. There's an election coming. You could also find out, get a pamphlet from the Refugee Action Committee. They're doing a great information night on April the 9th. Inform yourselves on what's happening on Manus and Nauru. Join Just Peace. For that matter, if you're a medico or in allied health, or if you teach health, join MAPW. Go to our website, mapw.org.au. It's easy to find, and Even inform yourselves. We've even got history lessons on the history of how Australia goes to war, what the impacts and costs are. Even lesson plans, even exams, even answers to the exams. Go the students. And as Dr. Bronowski said, please feel free to find out what the War Powers work is about and get the booklets that she referred to. But the people who actually do things, acknowledged and not, over and over, are our artists. Lindsay Pollock acknowledged his band, what a great name, the Unusual Suspects. But in welcoming the union band, the combined union band, please also let's thank Lindsay Pollock and the Unusual Suspects for the work of the artist, ongoingly reminding us of who we are and what needs to be expressed, what needs to be looked at, what needs to be acted on. Thank you. Welcome the Combined Unions Band.
Good afternoon, sorry. Yes, we are the Combined Unions Choir, and we sing for peace, we sing for social justice, and we sing for democratic rights.
We sing for the union movement, we sing for one and all. Workers from all unions, unions big and small. We're proud of the union movement and its struggles through the years. All it's done for workers is worth the sweat and tears. A movement that sings, a movement that sings, a movement that sings, will never die. We sing for union causes, we sing for black and white, we sing for peace and justice and democratic rights. We celebrate together the victories we have won, the strength we have in union, we celebrate in song. A movement that sings, a movement that sings, a movement that sings, will never die. A movement that sings, a movement that sings, a movement that sings, will never die.
Our next song is a peace song that some of you may know. It's called Walls and Windows by Judy Small.
guess no baby boomer is going to forget, well, no lefty baby boomer anyway, is going to forget easily the power of songs like Where Have All the Flowers Gone? And All We Are Saying Is Give Peace a Chance. All those songs of the movement, and here we have our current songs from the Combined Union Choir, which is a testimony to the power of strength together, which is an antidote to the madness of untrammeled, rugged individualism. And yet we need both, knowing who we are, knowing what our values are, respectfully listening to all voices, negotiating, having the courage of the heart. These are the values of the union movement. So it's with great pleasure that I invite Ros McClelland, who's General Secretary of the Queensland Council of Unions. The movement have consistently shown not only their respect for the legal and human rights from those who seek refuge from the wars that Australia has actually been part of. If you've created the problem, why wouldn't you want to fix it? They've also demonstrated their support by being part of the demonstration and the vigil outside the Lady Salento Hospital for baby Asha and her family. But they've also been powerful in saying no. And this is what the strength is of the collective. We need to join together knowing what unites us as well as what separates us, and together say no to that which makes refugees, war, poverty, and the worst aspects of globalisation. Please welcome Ros McClelland.
G'day everyone. I'd like to begin in the usual way by paying respects to elders past and present. And everyone, I've been invited to speak today as General Secretary of the Queensland Council of Unions, but I've got to admit my favourite title's still Mum. And when I see footage of kids on boats, behind wire fences, detained, frightened, witness to violence and abuse, as a mother I can't help but picture what that must be like for refugee parents and how I would feel if that were my children in that situation. Because I don't know an Australian mother who'd wait politely in a long, tenuous and often non-existent line if her children were in danger. Bloody hell, I wouldn't. Would you? You'd scoop them up and run with them, right? And it just boggles the mind why the federal government is treating refugees who are doing their very best to get themselves and their kids out of harm's way as criminals. In fact, think about that kind of person for a minute. Someone who does whatever they can to help themselves, loves their family, wants nothing to do with war and conflict, hopes for more, puts opportunities for their children ahead of their own immediate comfort. Now, I don't know about you, but that sounds very much to me like the attitude of most of the nice neighbours in my street. So I've got to say, I think that those refugee families would fit in awesome. Every article you read about refugees and their plight has got a lot of statistics in it. But you won't hear that from me, because I don't want numbers to dull our sensitivities to the very real plight and danger of every individual man, woman and child who seeks safety here in Australia. We can't allow them to be seen as just a number. Wherever there is oppression, injustice and abuse of power, this, my friends, is union business. A bit over a year ago, the Queensland Council of Unions formed a group called Unions for Refugees Queensland. You will have heard of that group in other states, so we've got our very own right now. Those of you that are union members, all of you here I hope, make sure that you get onto your union and make sure that they're part of it. We're doing our best from a peak body perspective to get everyone involved. Many of our unions have got lots of campaigns going in the refugee space right now. Some you will have heard of, others not. we obviously all know about. I remember a lot of you from the Baby Asher vigil, so obviously you all know a lot about that. The brave stand taken by doctors, nurses, healthcare professionals and hospital staff in support of Baby Asher was just awesome. There's also been the campaign to free Mojan. You can see the sign up there. Yeah, led by the mighty Queensland Teachers Union and their workplace leaders at Yeronga State High. Now, most of you will know about this campaign, but for those of you that don't, Mojan was taken from her classroom and now remains in detention in Darwin. In a nutshell, the news is pretty bad. A formal legal submission called on Minister Dutton to use his discretion, I suppose, to allow her to apply for a partner visa while in Australia. And while advice from the department indicated that Minister Dutton could do that, he's formally indicated that he won't. So right now, Mojan faces an invidious choice: voluntarily return to Iran and face imprisonment at best, execution at worst, or be indefinitely detained. Now, back in Iran, her family has been raided by the police there, and photographs of Mojan performing and dancing have been seized, and that'll be the trigger by which the government arrest her if she returns to Iran. In addition, the Meat Workers Union have sent up an SOS for the help of the Queensland Council of Unions last week. They've got 16 Bangladeshi refugees who've been working at a southeast Queensland abattoir 4 years, I've got to say 4 years, who are now being assessed, and there are worrying signs that the government is not deeming them to be genuine refugees because they're financial refugees. So we're doing all we can as a union movement to circle the caravans around these union members working in a local abattoir and making sure that they're not deported and detained and incarcerated as well. It's great to be here with so many beautiful people who care, coming together to visibly demonstrate opposition to bad policy is really, really important. It's an important start. Every one of us here has power. Power in our own workplaces, in our unions, with our family, friends and neighbours to make a real and lasting change. But we need a plan. How about this? Number one, get folks together to discuss the issue and what can be done to change things. Taking action doesn't have to mean boring. Morning teas, a cricket friendly in your local park, a big play date for those with little kids and more can all be a chance to spread the Let Them Stay message. Wherever a group of like-minded folks gather, take the opportunity to draw up a little Let Them Stay sign, take a photo of yourself and post it online. Number two, spread it. Take a Let Them Stay poster and door knocker. They're available at the rack stand, or you can download them online as well, that says this door is open to refugees. And importantly, put it up. It's not going to do any good in your car or your bag, so take it home, put it up, encourage the small businesses in your neighbourhood to do likewise, ask your school, ask your workplace, put it up everywhere. Because our job isn't to take the temperature, our job's always to change the temperature. And number three, go tell the decision makers what you think. You could be forgiven for thinking that some politicians rarely listen and those that listen don't give a shit. But everyone, there's a sweet spot. There's a sweet spot right now in the couple of months before the next federal election when tin ears get a miraculous clean out. So now's the time. Take the opportunity. Do something. You can always write a letter. You can always make a call. But the power of persuasion and that face-to-face engagement with your local member is something that really will convince them. Eyeball them, tell them your stories, explain why you care, what you know, options for a just resolution, and calling the question on them about what they're going to do about it is incredibly powerful. If you're interested, but you haven't done this kind of thing before, look to your left, look to your right, hook up with some folks who also care that are around you here today, and you can see in the crowd there are a lot of people with signs, okay, signs signs naming the various Brisbane area federal electorates. And if you're in Ford, Petrie, Griffith, Ryan, Brisbane, you can see these signs all around. Now these folks need your details either now, they're going to be on the march, and they're going to be back in the park afterwards. So take the opportunity to sign up to do something, because we can change the world together, people, but it's more than a walk in the park, am I right? Sure is. Now, we've shown that it was feet on the streets that forced a historic back down, an Olympic level backflip in the Baby Asher campaign at the hospital. But we can't relax on this, because we still don't have our ironclad guarantee that here is where Baby Asher and her parents will stay, because kids don't belong in detention. We've shown our politicians, our community, and perhaps even ourselves, that when we go hard, we can make a difference. But it's time to back it in. We've found a voice, we've been heard, let's keep using it. Because what we do or don't do from today really, really matters. Who are we really? What kind of Australia do we want? Well, I want an Australia that's better, fairer and kinder. I want an Australia that lifts up and embraces refugees, the poor and the marginalised, not detains, beats and bloodies them in our name. I want an Australia that upholds the dignity of everyone, whatever their skin colour, and I want an Australia where kids are loved, valued, educated and have the opportunity to fulfil their full potential, whether they arrived here on a boat 200 years ago or 2 days ago, I don't care. And I want an Australia that turns off the sitcoms and turns on to what really matters. Refugee rights are human rights.
Feisty woman. And that's the thing about action together. Think about those young doctors in that hospital. Maybe they got together talking with the nurses, it's not okay, we can't discharge this baby, this is not our medical training. In case you thought it was easy, I'll tell you it wasn't. Medicine's an incredibly conservative, and all the allied health professional trainings are very conservative, very hierarchical. But if you can get the professor or somebody senior to have your back, things can change. However, what happens when you see that things have to change and you're the only one? And you're the one who's grown up in and been educated in that hierarchical collective space. You're working for government. You've had to sign a contract saying you won't speak, you've been muzzled in advance, but you're a doctor and you can't stay silent. You can't not act. What kind of heart, mind and guts does it take to stand then? Well, we're about to find out. Please welcome Dr. Paul Sangaran, who's a medical officer who worked at Christmas Island Detention Centre, and he appeared before the Human Rights Commission's inquiry into detention, what happens to children in immigration.
Hello everyone. I'm going to say quite a few uncomfortable things, and I hope I don't end up too unpopular at the end of the